O God, our Heavenly Father, you have blessed us with the brave men and women who are willing to defend our freedom. May your protection and grace surround them each day. Let your healing hand be upon those who suffer wounds and injuries. May those who have made the ultimate sacrifice rest forever in your holy presence. Comfort the families who mourn and are left to remember the precious lives of their loved ones. Help us to honor and support them. Let us ever be mindful of each sacrifice made on behalf of the American people by our sons, daughters, husbands, wives, mothers, fathers, and friends. Amen.
Detail 10, good. Rifleman, port, arms. Forward, march. Halt. Raise the color slowly. Present, arms.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleam, whose fast lights and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the landward we watched with so gallantly stream, and the rockets are glad, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that the flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Ladies and gentlemen, to present us with the official governor's proclamation of Veterans Day, His Honor, the Mayor of Attleboro, Mr. Paul Heroux.
Good morning. I'd like to thank you for joining us today on Veterans Day. Today is a special day. It's the day we remember our veterans who have served honorably and given great sacrifice to the freedom and preservation of our country. Today I'm going to read a proclamation from our Governor, Charlie Baker, and that proclamation reads, "Whereas, since the Commonwealth's colonial days, thousands of men and women have served our country in defense of freedom and liberty, and whereas on November 11th, 1918, the armistice was signed in the forest of Compiègne by the Allied nations and Germany, ending World War I, the war to end all wars, after 4 years of conflict. And whereas, since that day, every November, people from around the world, around the nation, have gathered to honor our veterans. And whereas there are approximately 388,000 veterans living in Massachusetts. And whereas today, we are reminded of the great sacrifices and contributions of our veterans have made to our country. And whereas we honor and salute those who served our country throughout the generations with honor, patriotism, and courage. And whereas it is appropriate that all Massachusetts citizens remember the bravery of those who served their country, so that their dedication and sacrifices serve as a reminder of the cost of our freedom. And whereas in November 2020, the world will commemorate the 102nd anniversary of the armistice that ended the fighting in World War I at 11 a.m., November 11th, 1918, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Now, therefore, I, Charlie D. Baker, Governor of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, hereby proclaim November 11th, 2020 to be Veterans Day, and urge all of the citizens of the Commonwealth to take cognizance of this event and participate fittingly in its observance. Given at the Executive Chamber in Boston this 11th day of November in the year 2020 and of the independence of the United States of America and 244th. His Excellency Charles Baker, Karen Polito, the Lieutenant Governor, and William Galvin, the Secretary of State. Thank you.
We gather here today in Attleboro to recognize and celebrate our men and women in uniform. We thank their families for their service and their sacrifice as well. And we recommit ourselves today to the country that they have risked life and limb to protect and defend. May we all together strive to make sure that we are worthy of their sacrifice. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you to AACS for filming this so we can still, in the midst of the pandemic, have a celebration for Veterans Day. One of the honors I get as being an elected official is to be part of this and commemorate. I think the service of these people is an understatement. For somebody to go to a remote part of the world away from family and friends and everything they know and put themselves in harm's risk is something that we can never repay as a city or as a state or as a country. Thank you to everybody that served. Another honor of being an elected official is I've been lucky to spend some time with some of the veterans groups in the city, and I found them to be very respectful of each other. There's a camaraderie that goes back decades with them, and it's one of the hidden treasures of Attleboro is some of the veterans group in the city. So thank you very much.
Hi, I'm State Senator Becca Rausch. Although I cannot join you in person today, I am grateful to be able to send my well wishes to all of you and your families during these difficult times. And my deep thanks for everyone coming together today, even though it looks a bit different than usual, to honor our veterans. There is no doubt that COVID-19 has affected everyone in our community, and it is a testament to all of you that despite the circumstances, you found a way to maintain the Veterans Day tradition this year. Veterans Day has deep personal significance for me. My grandfather was a Holocaust survivor who spent years trying to get to this country. And then once he got here, he enlisted and went right back to his hometown in Germany to fight against the atrocities of Hitler and the Nazis. As his granddaughter, it has been a particular privilege and honor to directly support our Department of Veterans Services during my work in the executive branch, and now to serve as a member of the Legislative Joint Committee on Veterans and Federal Affairs. Thank you for coming together today to express our gratitude for our community members who have served our nation. To all the veterans here, thank you. Thank you for your bravery, your sacrifice, your dedication, and your service. We are here to celebrate and honor you and your families. Particularly in this moment in our state and national histories, we must acknowledge the heavy weight that deeply divisive conflict brings to bear on humanity. That weight is something that our veterans know all too well. And so it is that Veterans Day is an important reminder to each of us, not only to give thanks for the people who fought to defend democracy and decency and civility and justice, as well as their families, but also of our obligation to ensure that people who survive divisive conflict have the healthcare and other social safety nets readily available to them should they need that support. I thank each and every one of you for being here today. Showing up is the first step. Next, we must ask ourselves, what are we doing to make healthcare services and other supports more readily available, to provide job training skills and opportunities, and to help create peace, particularly at this moment. Generating these needed advancements is the next step. The step we must not ignore to support our people currently serving, our honored veterans, and all of us as we strive to achieve a better world. On behalf of a grateful Senate and a grateful Commonwealth, thank you to all of you who have served and to your loved ones. I wish everyone strength, health, and resilience. Happy Veterans Day.
Good afternoon. And I wish you a wonderful Veterans Day. My name is Ty Waterman. I serve on the Attleboro City Council, and I have the pleasure of being the chair of the Personnel, Veterans, and Human Services Committee on the council. But today, I want to take you back in time. I want to take you back before World War II, before when my father and maybe many of your fathers served in places like Guadalcanal, I want to take you back before World War I, before 1918, where my grandfathers served in places like France as an ambulance driver and a cavalry officer. I want to take you all the way back to 1865. The date was March 4th, 1865. The weather was awful. It had been raining for weeks, but it was the day of Abraham Lincoln's second inauguration. Riding down Pennsylvania Avenue at noon to the Capitol, Lincoln's carriage churned through a foot of mud and standing water. A crowd waiting for hours at the east front of the Capitol now stood sodden, deep in sludge. And above the inaugural platform, dark clouds scudded across the horizon. But as President Lincoln stood to take the oath of office, the sun suddenly burst through the clouds, and it flooded the scene with brilliant light. Standing in front of a reading desk, the new Capitol dome high behind them, Lincoln gave his second inaugural address, and it was short. It was the shortest in history. It was 703 words. And he finished this short address with these final words. With malice towards none, with charity for all, with firmness in the right, as God gives us to see the right, let us strive to finish the work that we are in, to bind up the nation's wounds, to care for him who shall have borne the battle, and for his widow and his orphan, and to do all which may achieve and cherish a just and a lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. President Lincoln was speaking primarily to a crowd of Washington, D.C. and northern people. He was speaking in front of a sea of blue uniforms gathered around. The war was going to be over in 6 more weeks. And little did he know, but his life would be over shortly after that. But he was also speaking to people who wore the color gray. He was thinking about the South and the Confederate soldiers who had fought so honorably for what they believed. He was thinking about their families, their wives, their children, their homes, many of which were destroyed. Because, you see, he was thinking about the North and the South as one country. And so that's why he said these words. With malice towards none, with charity for all, and let us strive to bind up the nation's wounds, achieving a just and a lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. Those words by Abraham Lincoln, 6 weeks before his death, maybe it was 7, can apply today just as much as they did in 1865. Lincoln was reaching across a great divide in America. 600,000 soldiers had been killed over a 4-year period. Families and homes torn apart in the North and in the South. Now, back in 1865, in many ways, like we are currently experiencing in 2020, The United States was fractured. Death and sickness was everywhere. And Lincoln wanted to reach out and bind up our nation's wounds and create a lasting peace. So on this Veterans Day, 2020, a day which once was called Armistice Day, right after World War I ended in 1918. Our country is once again, as we all know, in pain and division. Political divisions, social divisions, even families. We've been suffering in a virus that has killed, at last count, over 237,000 Americans and sickened countless more. Loss of jobs, financial despair, loss of hope. Veterans Day was created amidst a crisis such as Lincoln faced and we're facing today. Armistice Day was begun right after World War I ended, the war to end all wars, the Great War, as it was called. Europe was devastated and France was in ruins. Veterans Day, Armistice Day, was created to end wars and to honor those who fought in those wars and to create a lasting and just peace, as Lincoln said. Veterans Day honors all those who fought for justice and strive for that peace in Germany and France, Vietnam and Korea and Iraq and in Afghanistan and many, many more places. And it applies right here today in the United States of America. And so I want to leave you once more with Abraham Lincoln's words just weeks before he left us on this earth. With malice towards none, with charity for all, and let us strive to finish the work that we are in to bind up the nation's wounds and achieve a lasting peace among ourselves and with all nations. Thank you.
Flag bearer, present the colors. Present arms.
Ladies and gentlemen, would you please join me in the reciting of the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, arms.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we now present the different service branches of the United States military. The United States Army.
First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won, and the army goes rolling along. And it's high, high day, the army's on its way. Count off the cadence loud and strong. For where'er we go, we will always know that the army goes rolling along.
The United States Navy.
Anchors away, my boys, anchors away. Farewell to college shores, we sail at break of day. last night on shore, drink to the full. Until we meet once more, here's wishing you a happy voyage home.
The United States Marine Corps.
From the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, we fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. First we fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to claim the title of United States Marine.
The United States Air Force.
Off we go into the wide blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here we come, zooming to meet our thunder. Attleboro, give her the gun. Down we dive, starting our flame from under. Off with one hell of a roar. We live in fame or go down in flame. Hey, nothing will stop the U.S. Air Force.
The United States Coast Guard.
We're always ready for the call. We place our trust in Thee. Through surf and storm and howling gale, I shall above see. Semper Paratus is our guide, our fame, our glory too. To fight, to save, or fight and die, I Coast Guard, we are for you.
The United States Merchant Marines. Ladies and gentlemen, World War I, known at the time as the Great War, officially ended when the Treaty of Versailles was signed on June 28, 1919, in the Palace of Versailles, outside the town of Versailles, France. However, fighting ceased several months earlier when an armistice, a temporary cessation of hostilities between the Allied nations and Germany, went into effect on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. For that reason, November 11th, 1918 is generally regarded as the end of the war to end all wars. In November 1919, President Woodrow Wilson proclaimed November 11th as the first commemoration of Armistice Day with the following words: "To us in America, the reflections of Armistice Day will be filled with solemn pride in the heroism of those who died in the country's service, and with gratitude for the victory, both because of the thing from which it has freed us and because of the opportunity it has given America to show her sympathy with peace and justice in the councils of the nations." The original concept of the celebration was for a day observed with parades and public meetings and a brief suspension of business beginning at 11 a.m. An act approved May 13, 1938, made the 11th of November in each year a legal holiday, a day to be dedicated to the cause of world peace and to be thereafter celebrated and known as Armistice Day. Armistice Day was primarily a day set aside to honor veterans of World War I. But in 1954, after World War II had required the greatest mobilization of soldiers, sailors, Marines, and airmen in the nation's history, after American forces had fought against aggression in Korea, and the 83rd Congress, at the urging of the Veterans Service Organizations, amended the act in 1938 by striking out the word armistice and inserting in its place the word veterans. With the approval of this legislation on June 1st, 1954, November 11th became a day to honor American veterans of all wars. The first Veterans Day under the new law was observed on October 25th, 1971. On September 20th, 1975, President Gerald R. Ford signed Public Law 94-97, which returned the annual observance of Veterans Day to its original date of November 11th, beginning in 1978. Veterans Day, a celebration to honor American veterans for their patriotism, love of country, and willingness to serve and sacrifice for the common good. Now, ladies and gentlemen, for a reading of the official American Legion Veterans Day speech, Commander of the Attleboro American Legion Post 20, Mr. John Vandal.
70 years ago, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt signed what many historians considered the greatest social legislation ever passed by the U.S. Congress. As popular as the GI Bill remains today, it took the horrific cost and bloodshed of World War II to remind many Americans just how great a debt is owed to our veterans. In 1932, thousands of World War I veterans camped out in Washington, D.C. to petition their government for the bonuses that they felt were owed. Their campsite was forcibly overrun by the U.S. Army, and at least 2 veterans were killed by the police. President Franklin Roosevelt told the American Legion National Convention in 1933 that, quote, "No person because he wore a uniform must thereafter be placed in a special class of beneficiaries over and above the other citizens," unquote. While Roosevelt would later prove himself to be a great wartime commander-in-chief, what he and others failed to realize at this time is that veterans were not asking to be part of a special class. They just wanted a shot at the American dream that they fought so hard to defend. Most Americans profess to truly love our veterans, especially at gatherings like Veterans Day and Memorial Day. And while their feelings are usually sincere, it is important to remember that veterans are defending us 365 days a year. The heroism that has been demonstrated time and time again by veterans of the American Revolution to the global war on terrorism is sometimes unnoticed by those who enjoy the security that their sacrifice has provided. Our debt to our heroes can never be repaid, but our gratitude and respect must last forever. For many veterans, our nation was important enough to endure long separations from their families, myths of births of their children, freezing in sub-zero temperatures, bake wild in jungles, lose limbs, and far too often lose their lives. Military spouses have to endure the career interruptions, frequent changes of address, and the disproportionate share of parental responsibilities. The children had to deal with the changes in schools, separation, friends, and hardest of all, the uncertainty of whether mom and dad will live through the next combat tour. Warriors need to advocate, and that is why the American Legion exists. We are here to serve veterans, their families, and their communities. Veterans need each other, but more importantly, our country needs our veterans. You cannot fight a war without veterans, and while the utopia idea of society without war is appealing, let us not forget that the wars have liberated slaves, stopped genocide, and toppled terrorists. Stephen Ambrose once wrote, "Americans' war have been like rungs on a ladder in which it rose to greatness. No other country has triumphed so long, so consistently, or on such a vast scale through force of arms. Those who defend us from our enemies must be supported. Whenever there is service, was in Baghdad or Beirut, we need to serve veterans as well as they serve us, even when the guns have temporarily stopped firing. The American Legion shows us support for America's heroes through the Family Support Network, Legacy of Scholarship Fund, Operation Comfort Warriors, Temporary Financial Assistance, and National Emergency Fund, just to name a few of our programs. Veterans don't ask for much. They do not want to be in a special class, but the benefits of a mere drop in the bucket compared to the financial and human cost of war. And while not all veterans see war, all who served in the military have expressed a willingness to fight if called to. You can show your support for this great men and women by hiring a veteran in your workplace, visiting in VA hospitals, or donating in veteran programs. Homelessness is another issue that affects veterans disproportionately. Too often, today's tattered citizen of the street was yesterday's toast of the town in a crisp uniform with rows of shiny medals. This is hardly the thanks of a grateful nation. We can do better. We must do better. Historians said that Dwight Eisenhower was prouder of being a soldier than he was being a president. And while relatively few veterans ever reach the rank of general, pride in one's military service is a bond shared by nearly all that have served. Fewer than 10% of Americans can claim the title veteran. Far less than 1% of the population is currently defending the global war on terrorism. And yet many seem intent on trying to balance the federal budget by diminishing the qualities of life programs designed for the families who have already disproportionately made these sacrifices. Veterans have given us freedom, security, and the greatest nations on earth. It is impossible to put a price on that. We must remember them. We must appreciate them. God bless, and for all of you being here, God bless our veterans, and God bless America. Thank you. I'm going to go to the rifle school. All right? Left squad, 10, hook. Point, homes. At the ready. Lock and load. Aim. Fire. At the ready. Lock and load. Aim. Fire. At the ready. Lock and load. Aim. Fire. Port, homes. Present, homes. Order. Dismiss.
Citizens of Attleboro, although today marks one of celebration and respect for all those that have donned a uniform in service to our great nation, we must still take time to mourn and remember those that made the ultimate sacrifice for all of us. A poem to a fallen soldier. You shall never be forgotten. For though you may be gone from this world, your spirit will live forever. It lives in the laughing eyes of children who are free from want and oppression. It lives in the bravery and conviction of those who still struggle for liberty. And it lives in me, for I promise to cherish every breath of freedom that you paid the ultimate sacrifice to secure. I ask only that I might be granted some small fraction of your courage and strength to face the challenges of my life with an honor and dignity worthy of your legacy. May you rest in eternal peace, safe in the knowledge that your sacrifice was not made in vain. Now, let us honor those veterans that are not here with us today, whose lives were extinguished on the fields of battle.